Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're going to get into something really interesting. We're going to be talking about slow living a la Rasulullah.
Ooh, I like that.
It's a great podcast. It's all about, how to kind of slow down and bring the teachings and the way of life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, into, a modern context.
Yeah, that's so relevant today with all the hustle and bustle. Everyone's trying to do a million things at once.
Exactly. And this particular episode we're going to be diving into is called The Prophet and the Simple Life in the Market.
Oh, interesting. I love that they focus on the marketplace. It's such a vibrant part of life.
Yeah. And what's really fascinating is that, even back then, the marketplace was this place where you could really see like the principles of Islam in action, like honesty and contentment and, just kind of like a slower, more mindful way of being.
Right. Like even in the midst of all that trading and bartering, there's this underlying sense of ethics and community.
Exactly. So one of the first things that really stood out to me in this episode was the story about the Prophet Muhammad encountering a merchant who was selling goods with hidden defects.
Oh, yeah. I remember that story. It's a powerful reminder about the importance of honesty.
Yeah, he actually lifted up part of the grain or whatever it was that was being sold and saw that underneath, the top layer, it was actually kind of spoiled.
Right, and he didn't just ignore it. He called the merchant out on it.
Yeah, and his response was really striking. He said, "Whoever cheats, then he is not one of me."
Wow, that's a strong statement.
Yeah.
It shows that honesty wasn't just some optional virtue. It was like a fundamental part of being a Muslim.
And, it makes you think about how much emphasis we put on honesty today. Like, is it really that important to us?
Well, I think it should be, honesty is the foundation of trust. And without trust, relationships crumble, societies fall apart.
Yeah. That's so true. Like, even in our personal lives, if we're constantly lying or being deceitful, it creates this underlying anxiety, this feeling that we can't really be ourselves.
Absolutely. It's exhausting trying to keep up with all the lies, and it erodes our own sense of integrity.
And that's the opposite of what slow living is all about, right? It's about being authentic, being present, and living in alignment with our values.
Exactly. So honesty isn't just some moral principle. It's actually a key ingredient for a more peaceful and fulfilling life.
I love that. So besides honesty, the episode also talks about contentment, which is another big theme in slow living.
Yeah, contentment's huge, especially in today's world where we're constantly bombarded with messages telling us we need more stuff, more experiences, more everything.
And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he really emphasized choosing what was sufficient rather than excessive, focusing on your needs versus your wants.
Right, like there's this story about him choosing a simple garment over a more luxurious one, saying that it was enough for him.
And that's such a powerful lesson because it challenges that whole consumerist mindset that tells us we always need to be upgrading, always striving for more.
It's like, when does it end, right? There's always going to be something new, something bigger, something better. But true contentment comes from appreciating what we have and being grateful for it.
I think that's a really hard lesson for a lot of people to learn, myself included. We're so conditioned to want more, to compare ourselves to others, and to feel like we're always lacking something.
It's definitely a challenge, but I think the Prophet's example shows us that it's possible to find peace and happiness without constantly chasing after more.
So how do we do that? How do we cultivate contentment in a world that's constantly telling us we need more?
Well, I think it starts with awareness, like becoming aware of those messages that are bombarding us, and then consciously choosing to resist them.
So being mindful of the things that are triggering those feelings of wanting more, maybe it's social media or maybe it's certain people in our lives who are always flaunting their possessions.
Right. And then once we're aware of those triggers, we can start to make different choices, like maybe spending less time on social media or surrounding ourselves with people who value simplicity and contentment.
And maybe even practicing gratitude, actually taking the time to appreciate the things we already have.
Yeah, gratitude is huge. It shifts our focus from what we're lacking to what we're blessed with.
One of the things I really appreciate about this episode is that it doesn't just talk about these concepts in a theoretical way. It actually connects them to the Prophet's life and how he lived them out in the real world.
Right, like he wasn't just preaching about honesty and contentment. He was actually embodying those values in his daily life.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so inspiring because it shows us that it's actually possible to live this way, even in the midst of all the challenges and temptations of modern life.
And it's not just about individual practice. It's also about creating a society where these values are upheld, where honesty is rewarded, and where contentment is valued over excessive consumption.
It's like a vision for a more just and sustainable world, a world where we're all working together to create a better future for ourselves and for generations to come.
And it all starts with each of us making those small choices in our daily lives to be honest, to be content, and to live with intention.
So what's the next step? Like, how do we take these beautiful ideas and actually put them into practice?
Well, I think the first step is to just be aware of them, to let them sink in, and to start thinking about how they might apply to our own lives.
And then maybe like pick one area where we want to focus our efforts. Like maybe it's our relationship with money, or maybe it's our approach to work.
Right. And then start small. Make those gradual changes and be patient with ourselves.
Because it's a journey, right? It's not about being perfect. It's about striving to live in a way that aligns with our values and brings us closer to Allah.
Exactly. And the more you practice, the more natural it will become, and the more peace and fulfillment we'll experience in our lives.
This has been such a rich conversation. I'm really grateful for your insights.
Likewise, it's always a pleasure to dive deep into these topics with you.
So we've talked about honesty and contentment, but there's another really fascinating aspect of this episode that I want to explore, and that's the idea of work as a form of worship.
Oh, yeah, that's a powerful concept, and it's something that's often overlooked in our modern world.
Yeah, we tend to think of work as just a means to an end, like something we have to do to earn money and pay the bills.
Right. But in Islam, work is seen as something much more than that. It's seen as an act of worship, a way to serve Allah and to contribute to society.
And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he was a perfect example of this. He worked as a shepherd, he worked as a trader, he wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty.
And he emphasized the importance of working honestly and earning a halal livelihood.
There's this beautiful hadith where he says, the upper hand is better than the lower hand.
Meaning, it's better to be the one giving than the one receiving.
Exactly. And that applies to work as well. It's better to be the one providing for yourself and your family than to be dependent on others.
And there's another hadith where he says, the best sustenance is sustenance obtained by the work of one's own hands.
So it's not just about earning a living, it's about the dignity and the sense of purpose that comes from working hard and doing something meaningful.
And you know, it's interesting because in today's world, there's so much emphasis on finding your passion and pursuing your dreams.
But sometimes I think we can get so caught up in that pursuit that we forget about the value of just plain hard work.
Like sometimes it's not about finding the perfect job. It's about approaching whatever job you have with excellence and with a sense of service.
I love that. So even if you're not working your dream job, you can still find meaning and purpose in your work by doing it to the best of your ability and by seeing it as a way to contribute to the greater good.
And that's a really empowering message because it means that anyone, regardless of their job title or their income, can find fulfillment in their work.
And that's something that I think we've lost sight of in our modern world. We've become so obsessed with status and prestige that we've forgotten about the inherent dignity of all work.
And you know what's really amazing is that the episode goes even further and suggests that trading itself can actually be a form of worship.
Wait, really? I've never thought about it that way.
I know, right? It sounds kind of radical, but when you think about it, if you're trading honestly and you're providing goods and services that benefit people, then why couldn't it be considered a form of worship?
That's so true. It's like it's not just about making money. It's about serving the community and contributing to the well-being of others.
Exactly. And there's this hadith where the Prophet says, Allah loves a servant who, when he works with a taqwan.
What is it, kinquan?
It means sincerity or excellence, like doing something to the best of your ability with a sense of devotion.
So it's like if you're going to be a trader, be the best trader you can, be honest, be fair, and strive for excellence in everything you do.
And that's a really high standard, but it's also a really inspiring one.
It's like it elevates the whole concept of work and trade to a whole new level. It's not just about making a living, it's about making a difference.
And you know, it's interesting because in the episode they talk about how the marketplace was actually a place where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would often share his teachings and his values.
So it wasn't just a place of commerce, it was also a place of community and spiritual growth.
Exactly. And that's something that I think we've lost in our modern world. Our marketplaces have become so impersonal, so transactional.
Yeah, we go to the store, we buy what we need, and we leave. There's no sense of connection, no sense of shared purpose.
And I think that's a real shame because the marketplace has the potential to be so much more than that.
Like, imagine if we could create marketplaces where people felt valued, where they felt a sense of belonging, where they could connect with others who shared their values.
That would be amazing. It'd be like a return to the traditional marketplace where people came together, not just to buy and sell, but to socialize, to learn, and to build relationships.
And maybe that's what slow living is all about. It's about rediscovering those traditional values of honesty, contentment, community, and meaningful work.
And bringing them into our modern world in a way that's relevant and inspiring.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation. I'm really excited to keep exploring these ideas and to see how we can apply them to our own lives.
Me too. It's a journey, and I'm glad we're on it together.
So stay tuned, because in our next deep dive, we're going to be talking about another really fascinating aspect of slow living a la Rasulullah.
Oh, can't wait. What is it?
Well, you'll just have to wait and see, but I promise it's going to be good.
Okay, you've got me intrigued.
All right, well, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
See you then.
Yeah.